Hi, everyone. It's Teresa Auten, and I'd like to welcome you now to my harbor home. Today, we're going to do the first in a series of presentations about my book, Harbor Home: Create a Home Where You and Your Children Can Thrive. Now, this is a study guide. It's designed to be a small group study so you can gather your friends or just look at these presentations by yourself. But as you do that, it might be helpful to have a copy of the book to read before or after you watch the presentations. This is set up to be a small group study. There are questions for deeper thinking or for discussion at the end of each chapter. So I encourage you to really do a deep dive into this. It's an easy read. It's not a scholarly work. It is a work designed to encourage you as you raise your family, because we know that families are the baseline of every culture, every nation, every language. It doesn't matter what your religion is, what your political leanings are. Your family is the base of your culture. And if every family could create a harbor home, the world would be a better place. So today we're going to begin with the theme of the first chapter of Harbor Home, and that is the chapter called The Cove. And it is the key element of any harbor. A cove is the place in a harbor that holds it all together. Without a cove, there is no harbor. Now, every harbor has a cove, but not every cove is part of a harbor. But I'd like to go back to the word harbor, because throughout history, across all millennia, harbors have been prized. They are historically the places where the people who live in them are more secure, typically more prosperous, more cultured, because the world used to and still does come to our harbors. They are the access point for the rest of the world, for all of our brothers and sisters around the world. Harbors are how we come together. They're the interface of the world. Great adventures have been launched from harbors, great explorations, and a harbor is also a more easily defended place. So what's the deal about the Cove? You see, there are in every beckoning harbor several elements that identify a harbor. And these elements work together to make a harbor work. And every harbor is unique. So as every harbor is unique, every family is unique. And we're going to talk about ways where your harbor home becomes yours and yours alone. Now, today we're going to focus on the Cove. A cove is a sheltered area that is the key to integrity in every harbor. Some other of the elements of a harbor are the deep water, and in the book Harbor Home, the deep water is linked to our faith. Every family with a faith belief is capable of creating the deep water of that faith. We'll talk more about that in our next presentation. The inlet of a harbor is the passage between the harbor and the open, wild ocean, the open water of the world. The great roaring seas of our planet have pathways that lead you to a harbor. Every harbor has a way to get from the open water into the harbor, and that gateway is called an inlet. And we'll talk about that in another presentation. In every harbor, there is typically a lighthouse, which would be serving as your guardian, your guide, your aid to navigation. Harbor masters are those people who are in charge of the safety of the entire community, the entire harbor. Winds and waves, of course, are an integral part of life in any harbor, as are hurricanes. But today we are really going to focus on the cove. Now, to define a cove, we would say that it's a sheltered body of water, and that shelter is created by a curved piece of land which separates it from the open water. So a cove is a place of refuge from the storms and the toxic stress. Cove is the heart of any harbor. And if you'll look at this photograph, this is a photograph that I took myself of the cove at Ocracoke Island, and it's called Silver Lake. The island, or the stretch of land that you see there with the red roofed building on it, that is the stretch of land that separates Silver Lake Cove from the Pamlico Sound. And just to the left off of this photograph, beyond the Pamlico Sound, is the Atlantic Ocean, at a part of the Atlantic Ocean that we call the graveyard of the Atlantic. It is a particularly rough part of that ocean. It's where the Labrador Current comes very close to the Gulf Stream. And at these places where these very fast-moving currents meet, the water becomes really turbulent. And in addition to this, there are a great many shoals in unpredictable places, and the shoals themselves are unpredictable. They change and they shift due to the rapidly moving currents. So this area of the Atlantic Ocean, the graveyard of the Atlantic Ocean, represents, for our purposes, the world beyond your home, the turbulent, chaotic culture that you work in and you go to school in and you do business within. And the cove represents the safety and the security of your home. So how do we begin to create a cove in our home? What can we do to create the elements of safety and security and peace and low stress that gives our family a place to come in from the graveyard of the Atlantic, from the wild churning seas of the oceans of our culture and their workplaces and their school? How can we build a safe place so that our homes become that refuge from the storms and the toxic stress beyond our walls? Well, let's start by looking at our bodies. Our bodies are really the only thing that we can control. We have only got complete control over these very personal areas. And if you'll look at this illustration, this is an illustration that went viral on the internet, and I don't know who drew this, but I know it did go a long, long way and popped up on my social media sites and other different places on my internet searches. And this is one child's illustration of the word safe. And when I saw this for the first time, this went through my heart. It just stopped me in my tracks when I looked at this, and I know that this is the reality of security and safety for children. For your child, there is no safer place than in the sanctuary of your loving arms. The cove of your body is where your child's going to feel safe. You also see here in this slide an illustration of a beach ball. And I would like to encourage you now where you are to just hold up your hands. And I can't get quite in the camera here. Hold up your hands as though you're holding a large beach ball at shoulder level. And in that space, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the cove of your body. This is where your child is going to find safety and security most readily. This is where they naturally gravitate. If you remember the first time your child was handed to you, whether your child came to you through an act of birth or through an act of adoption or fostering, remember what your first instinct was when you received that child into your arms the first time. You opened your arms to them and welcomed them in to the cove of your body. No matter how exhausted you were after giving birth, no matter how long the adoption process had been, you welcomed those children to you by opening your arms to them. You instinctively pulled them into your personal space. What does this do for your child? Well, because you are your child's source of security and safety, children who are very often and regularly snuggled and hugged, they feel more secure. They've got the sensation of security more, just more of it. There's more security there. Security and snuggling and hugging and giving your children that kind of safety net. It's not something that you want to use sparingly. You want to give this kind of love and safety and affection, security to your children lavishly. You want to lavish them with time in the cove of your body. This is not a quick squeeze every, few days. This is regular, routinely spent time in the cove of your body. And this is going to give your child the kind of security that they'll carry forever. They will always remember how that safety was part of their upbringing. My children are fully grown, and they still come to me when we get to be together for those big hugs inside the cove of my body. Your child will never outgrow wanting that from you, but you start it early and you give it often and lavishly. When you do this routinely with your child, you are giving your children more than just a hug. It's more than just a sense of safety and security. Children who have physical contact with safe adults often receive healthy support for their emotional regulation. Remember that temper tantrums, and that's another presentation that I'm going to be uploading to my website soon, is the presentation about dealing with temper tantrums in young children. But emotional regulation is what children who are having a temper tantrum are lacking in that moment. So providing the support in the cove of your body gives them more ability to regulate their emotions. So even if they're not having a big display of a big emotion in the moment, giving them this time spent with you will help their ability to regulate big emotions. It just sets them up, it tees them up to do this on their own more readily. This contact also helps them with their stress responses. Their stress responses don't peak out so fast and go so high. They are, in general, they know they're safe and secure. And they don't have such well-defined and out off the charts, kind of stress responses, because being close to another person, being close to your safe person, stimulates their brains, okay? And young children's brains are developing faster and setting themselves up for life. And they're doing this at a faster pace in these early years than at any other time in your life. So their brains are being stimulated to release oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is the hormone which contributes to calm, moods. It's a happy hormone. It's just what is released in our brains when we feel safe, when we have that overwhelming sense of well being. And this is an important factor in just regulating your child's or helping your child to regulate themselves as far as, hey, I'm safe. The world's a good place. I've always got a safe place to return. I'm never free falling through the world because I've got a safe place to go back to. No matter what happens at school, no matter what happens with my friends, I have a safe place. And that kind of security is a tremendous benefit to children. Now, if being in your up close and personal is sometimes it's challenging for some people, and I know some adults who are just a little hesitant for whatever reason to be very close and physical, even with their own children. And so in order to overcome that, I'm not going to say it's okay. I want to help you to see how you can give your child what they need while recognizing and just going ahead and claiming that this is hard for you. So if you're one of those people and this is harder for you to be close to another person, let me give you some ideas about how to make that happen and be more palatable. So the number one thing, and this is my soapbox issue anyway, I don't ever leave a group of parents without saying to them, read to your child every day, read out loud. And I want to add this point right here and now, playing audiobooks in the car or in their room is not the same thing as you reading aloud to your child. When you are holding your child near and you are reading a book with them, you are letting them hear the cadence of your voice. You're letting them feel your heartbeat. They can sense your breath nearby. They are safe, and they are also learning, how is language built? How do we use our language? How do we speak? What's the cadence of the spoken language? As you are reading aloud to them and you are tracking the words from left to right on the page, you are demonstrating over and over that our read language, our written language, tracks from left to right. You are also showing them that these symbols, if your children are pre-readers, you're showing them that these symbols on the page have meaning, and they have a meaning that's important. And you are helping them become readers just by this. I call that teaching children to read by the lap method. Okay, that's the number one reading technique, is to teach your child by the lap method. The lap method is holding your child in your lap and reading to them. Children who are read aloud to every day, and this is research-based data, I don't know, whichever word. Children who are read aloud to each day have higher levels of concentration. They have enhanced cognitive skills and increased social skills. This is giving your child more advantages than just being safe and secure in your harbor. So think about this. If you're a little squeamish about holding a sticky child close, don't think of it that way. Think of it as helping your child in these ways. Creating a welcoming cove in your personal space is going to also give them, if you're reading, a stronger vocabulary. It helps your child, now follow me on this one, enjoy experiences outside of your community. Children, when you're reading to them, They get to enjoy experiences outside their community because perhaps you're reading to them about people outside their community. This is a story. If you're reading a traditional fairy tale, you're talking about someone they don't know, going on an adventure they've never had. There's so many social skills to be gained as children begin to learn not every family looks like mine. The other thing that has recently come to light is that the single greatest predictor of academic, and here I know the slide says academic success, but I really prefer the word academic growth. The single greatest predictor of your child being able to experience academic growth is whether or not they've been read aloud to every day. Now, this is just a fact. It's not disputable. This is the thing. I don't like academic success because, truthfully, I don't know how to define academic success. I don't know what that means. It looks different in every single child. So let's just talk about your child being able to grow academically and socially and culturally. And it is remarkable how much reading aloud to your child every single day will enhance their growth in all these areas. You know, if you need other things besides reading aloud to bring your child into the Cove, perhaps they resisted a little bit, then there's other things you can do. You can play video games together. I just want to go on record now as being, I just don't like video games. I don't like them. I don't like what they sound like. I don't like what they look like. And frankly, I can't do them. I'm not good at them. So when video games were really new, my children had a little video game thing. And it seemed like it was called, the game we played was called Mario Brothers, and you kind of, you jumped on top of things and over things and in things, and I could never really get that right. But one thing I could do was sit on an ottoman with my children and sit right behind them and wrap my arms around them and ask them to show me, to teach me how to do the video games better. Now, how many birds were we killing with that stone? So many. They were in my cove, so we were experiencing that personal closeness. I was also modeling for them how learners learn. And I was putting them in the role of teacher. They suddenly were in charge. They knew something that mom didn't know. I taught them how to ask good questions. I asked them to lead me in the ways that they knew how to do that. So this set up a great role reversal that showed my children that, first of all, learning goes on forever. Even mom needs to learn new things and can learn new things and likes to learn new things. So it also served as just another activity to get them inside the cove of my body. You can color and draw sitting very next to, very close to one another. Coloring books, I always loved it. I had crayons and coloring books, and we would sit next to each other, and one child would color on this side and I would color on the other side, and we could talk. All of this is done without extra voices, without television in the background. Chores like washing dishes at the sink, if people still do that. So you rinse dishes at the sink. Stand your child on a stool next to you at the sink when you're working there, and you're close together and you're talking together, and they're learning how to do the work that makes a household go on. Folding laundry is another great example of that. So our body as a cove, there's so many ways to achieve this within your capabilities, within your interest level, within your child's interest level. And remember, as children are younger, they've got a shorter attention span that's developmentally appropriate. A 3-year-old, you've got just a blip of time. So take advantage of it when they're still. So we're going to move on now, away from our body being a cove, and we're going to talk about creating a cove with words, because words matter. Words matter. You can destroy or build up a person's spirit with your words. When I was a child, and this was back in the late 60s when I was school age and into the early 70s, there was a sing-songy little rhyme that was just everywhere we turned. And that is, it went like this: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And that lie was foisted on children my age for our entire growing up years, and never has there been a greater lie in all of humanity. Words matter. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will break my heart. Words will erode my spirit. Words will convince me that I am worthless. Words will plant fear and doubt. Words can lead to lifelong struggles with depression and anxiety. So understand that the words you're speaking to your child, the words that you're putting out into the world, that's your spirit. Our spirit is sent into the world through our breath with the sound attached to it. That's what words are. Breath with sound. And that sound carries meaning to your children. So watch your words. Words can also make a child giggle. You know that giggling and laughing triggers all those happy hormones in your brain, all those chemicals that lead to joy and well-being. Those chemicals are all included in the giggling process. When your children are laughing, those happy chemicals are infiltrating their brain. And when the laughter stops, those happy chemicals remain behind. So holding your child close and laughing with your child, those things keep an ongoing steady supply of these mood regulating, well-being enhancing hormones and chemicals. So do these happy things as much as you possibly can. Words will make your child giggle. Use your words that way. Words will also help your child understand the world around them, what's happening around them. Words will encourage me. Words will help me see the best in myself and boost confidence. Words used properly from you to your child will teach them by example how to speak positively and kindly and respectfully. And here I want to give you the golden ratio. The golden ratio for positive to negative speaking is 10-1. You and your child need to hear 10 times more positive words than negative words. That is what it takes to keep us just at neutral. Okay? So let's bear in mind, as we're speaking to our children, that our positive phrases, our positive tone of voices, our positive way of wording things, our tone of voice, our body language, everything about our communication needs to be 10 times more positive than negative. Just put that in your, in the back of your mind and use that as you go through each day. Now, another thing about words in your cove is that children take your words literally. Now, until a child is 8 years old, they're still considered a young child. That's the cutoff point. So children, if they're going to take your words literally, children 8 and under absolutely cannot understand sarcasm. So let me give you, for example, here. So you go to the bathroom and your 7-year-old has taken his bath. There's water everywhere. The shower curtain is flung halfway across the room. The rubber duckies and whatever is on the floor along with the towels. And you look at that mess and you put your hands on your hips and you say, great. I love it when you leave the bathroom like this after your bath. I just think this is awesome. Please continue, by all means, to throw your towels on the floor. Well, your young child does not understand that. They literally cannot follow what you're saying. They hear your words saying that you love it when they throw your towels on the floor. But they see in your body language, they hear in your tone of voice that you don't love it. So your child is having to use all their brain power to figure out this disconnect, to figure out, what did I do wrong? So be specific. If your child has done the, aforementioned bathroom mess, say to them, now, I expect you to hang the towel up, put the toys back in their place, and close the shower curtain. You can do this, and I want you to do that right now. Just take the irritation out of the situation. Just remain as calm as you can be about it. So let's move on. In addition to how we speak to each other, let's talk for a minute about what we call each other in our harbor home. Names matter. I do a fair amount of parent coaching, and I will, and I'm available to do that. You can kind of look for that service on my website if you'd like. I'm sure you don't need it, but I occasionally do this. And I was working about a year, a little over that ago, with a young woman who's a single mom with a 2-year-old. And she was calling her son, as I was just sitting there visiting with them, something kind of unflattering, I thought, and I couldn't quite follow it. I listened to it several times before I realized that she was using the word turd. And that was how she was referring to her child. Now, let me just say now that the child had a beautiful, princely name that had been given to him at birth. And it made me sad to hear her say that. Now, I'm sure she thought she was meaning it in affection, but I just think that it's very important that the nicknames that we use for one another in our home be flattering and kind. An affectionate nickname that is enjoyed by everyone, especially the one who's being addressed by the nickname. So at 2, this little guy didn't really know what he was being called, but I assure you that this it wouldn't take long to figure out. Children are amazing at figuring out our language and what we mean by what we say. So let's be very, very mindful as we consider words and how our words make our cove. That we remember that what we call each other matters. There's just a whole host of things. I just, always said honey bunny or sugar plums or sweetie boo, whatever. Make it positive. But, if all else fails, you gave your child a beautiful name, a name that meant something to you. Why don't we just use that? And use that often. moving on from our words, I'd like to talk about our homes. You know, the space where we live and the space where we work influences us. It's it does more for us. The space where we live and work is more than just a shelter. It's more than just roof and walls. It reflects our personality. It reflects our hobbies, the things that bring us joy, the things that give us energy. So your space, it has a powerful influence on your attitude, the way you live your life, and your mood. Our homes shape our day to day experiences. And in your harbor home, the house itself, your apartment itself, your home, the space in which you live welcomes you and nurtures you if you set it up to do that. So let's look around. What kinds of things do this welcoming and nurturing? What kinds of things can we do to help our space nurture us and welcome us? And that's all of us. That means you too. The grown-ups matter in the whole scenario. But your home as a cove needs you to look around and look at clutter. Is there clutter everywhere? Do you have a hard time throwing out things because you think, oh no, what if I need this next week? Well, you know, chances are really, really good that you're not going to need it. If you have looked at it on your countertop or on your table or on the floor for, you know, several days and you haven't needed it and it doesn't have a place where it belongs, out the door, ship it out. Anything that you don't know is useful or you don't know you're going to need it, you don't know when you're going to need it or if you're going to need it, it's not useful. If you love something and you believe it to be beautiful and it brings back happy memories to you, then by all means, keep that. So things in your home that don't fall into the category of being useful or beautiful, just get rid of them. Just do away with it. Less really is more in terms of stuff. So just, you know, it's a stressor. It's a stressor for everybody, even hoarders. Hoarders who cling to the security of their stuff, even they are stressed, even if they can't acknowledge it. They are stressed by an overabundance of clutter. So let's start, if this is an issue you have, start by eliminating clutter. Now, light, sunlight, natural light is a mood enhancer. It boosts your productivity, it boosts your mood, it elevates your sense of well-being, it sharpens your mind, it wakes you up in the mornings, and it is a great way to make your home more of a cove, more of that safe, welcoming place. When the sun is out, let as much of it into your house as you can possibly get. Go through your home first thing in the morning when you're first up and throw open the curtains, throw open the blinds. And if you have a hard time getting to your windows in order to do that, rearrange your furniture so that you can easily access the curtains and the blinds. Get rid of any clutter that might be blocking the light from the windows. Now, speaking of furniture placement in your home is going to add to or take away from the sense of it being a welcoming cove in your harbor. So set up your furniture in such a way that it's easy for you to socialize as a family. Your home should have one room where everyone in the family can come in and have a comfortable place to sit, where they don't have to move stacks of magazines or the piles of junk mail or whatever else might be in the chairs and the sofas and all the seating areas. Make sure that there's a space where everyone can sit and be part of the family. Have that seating arranged so that without the screen being on, so that when the screen is not on, your family can have a place where they can talk or play games like charades or whatever, Pictionary, whatever game it is that you love to play that'll bring your family together. Or if you just want to visit, if you're a musical family, maybe you want to sing together, but place your furniture in such a way that your family can socialize with one another and be together. You know, as your children get older, they will continue to want to be with you. But their tendency as they move into the adolescent years is to spend an awful lot of time alone in their rooms. And that is not healthy, particularly if they have access to the internet on any kind of a device. That means they're spending time with who knows who. And you want to make sure that when they come into the greater family area, that there's a place where they're welcomed. If they walk into the living room hoping to maybe have a little time with their family and there's not a place for them to sit and be comfortable and be welcomed into the family circle, they will go back to their room. So set up those furnitures and set up your habits and your family dynamic so that there's a lot of time that you spend just being together in the same room and enjoying one another. Understand this about clutter, and we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to backtrack a little bit to clutter because I mentioned that clutter is a stressor, and it's because clutter represents unfinished chores. Clutter demands your attention, and it distracts you from the people around you. Clutter makes your brain work harder than it has to be, and clutter does stimulate that hormone, that stress hormone, cortisol. It's a health hazard very often. Clutter on the floor creates an atmosphere where elderly people and young children trip and fall. And clutter leaves less room for the people. Your home is for your people. You don't really need a home to store your stuff. You need a home to nurture your people. And that's what it's all about. Letting the sunshine in, keep those blinds and curtains open and allow as much light in as possible during the day, because then closing the curtains and the blinds at night can signal that it's time to begin winding down. As you start on that, train towards bedtime, that continuum with young children, the rituals and routines that you do, one of the first ones you can do is to dim the lighting in the room. Quiet what's coming into your child's eyes. Begin winding down. We're going to talk now about lowering the stress in the Cove. I'm going to talk a little bit about preventing stress, resilience in the face of stress, and confidence. So I want to talk for just a moment here about recognizing stress in children. Children exhibit their stress. They put their stress on display, as we all do, but children do it differently than adults. Children will engage in frequent and excessive crying, nail biting, where they bite their nails down to the quick. They might bite themselves or bite others. These are stress indicators. Changes in their sleep patterns, new or increased nightmares is also a sign that something is stressing your child. Dive into what might be going on. Acknowledge that you've noticed this behavior in your child. I see you've been having nightmares. Tell me about them. Wonder why you're having nightmares now. What do you think? Engage in the conversation. When temper tantrums are upped, ramped up in intensity and in frequency, this is a stress indicator. Temper tantrums that last more than 15 minutes or occur more than 5 times a day or are excessively violent, this is a cause to consult your pediatrician. Now, you want to document this before, if you begin to suspect that your child's temper tantrums are more than just them being tired or dehydrated or hungry or, out of their comfort zone. If you think there's something more going on, you can find on the freebie page of my website a document called an ABC chart. It's free, it's printable, just print it out. And you would want to fill that out and document some of this before visiting your pediatrician. You don't want to just show up and say, I don't know, I think my kid's having these crazy temper tantrums. If you can document it, be very specific, and help your pediatrician get a good, clear picture of what's going on in your home. In this case, an ABC chart stands for antecedent, which is what happened before the temper tantrum. Behavior, B, is for behavior, and that would be what happened. What specifically, be very clear about what your child was doing as they were exhibiting these big emotions in the form of a tantrum. And then C, the consequence. What really happened as a result of your child's big behavior? Could it be that they were being rewarded in some way? Did you give the treat that they were hankering after and therefore tantruming for? Were they getting something in return? I like to give the example that I was working in a daycare center, consulting with a daycare center several years ago, and they had one little boy whose tantrum behavior was just going off the charts. And so it started, once they started working with an ABC chart, they began to realize that it was happening just, kind of in that period of time leading up to lunchtime. And, the tantrum got so bad that they would call the child's father, and his father would come and get him and take him to McDonald's. And then they would go home and watch TV for the day. And so the child began to associate this behavior with getting a solo trip alone with dad to McDonald's. So we kind of had to alter the consequence. So that's what I'm talking about. If you're having this kind of issue in your home, be really honest. Just download that ABC chart and, just really get a clear vision of what's going on with your child when they're under stress and it's exhibited in this manner. Excessive crying. Offer a compassionate response. Very often when I was a child, the phrase was, quit crying or I'll give you a good reason to cry. No child cries without a reason. If your child is crying, there's a reason. Offer a compassionate response. Acknowledge their feelings. Notice the feelings behind the tears. And validate those emotions. Say to your child, you seem really sad. Can you tell me why you're sad? I'd love for you to not feel sad. Can you tell me? And then listen to what they say. Ask good questions. If you're experiencing excessive crying in your child and it's a new behavior, investigate relationships with other significant people. There may be a sibling or a child in your community or some other significant person that is, hurting their feelings in some way, and just investigate this. Give your child the tools they need. So if you find that your child is biting themselves or others, point this out and say, that looks like that hurt. How did this happen? And remind them that you love them. You don't want them to be hurt. Ask if you can help or what would help. Suggest to your child that the next time they want to bite themselves or bite someone else, to come to you instead. Or give them an alternative. Give them something they can bite. If this is their stress release, give them something that they can bite. Assure them that Biting is okay, but biting themselves or others is not okay. So they need a lot of tools. Changing in sleep patterns. Create a bedtime routine. If you don't have one, make one. If you have one, emphasize it more strongly. Get it more finely tuned. Make sure that you know, okay, now that we've had our warm bath, now we're going to put on our snuggly pajamas and we're going to find our soft creatures. We're going to find our soft snuggly toys and we're going to cuddle up for some time of read aloud. Acknowledge and emphasize each step of the routine. If changing in sleep patterns has become a way that your child is exhibiting stress, just emphasize the routine. Include warm baths, very soothing, soft pajamas, cuddling, gentle, uninterrupted read aloud stories. Lower the volume in the entire house. If your child's room is the only place it's quiet, but the video game or whatever is being projected from a noise source from another part of the house, that's going to distract your child. Quiet the whole house during bedtime. So routines, this is preventing stress in children. Routines and rituals are the number one stress preventer for children. Your routines will offer security that comes from having predictability. Bedtimes, meal times, when you're leaving home, when you're returning home. These are big daily transitions. They happen all the time. And when you establish routines in those transition moments, those transitions then become manageable and more easier. Rituals also offer security because rituals mean we belong. What do we do in our family? We do this. I am part of this family, and in our family, we pray before we eat. We read before we go to bed. We hug each other and say, I love you, before we leave to go our separate ways in the mornings. In our family, we have some inside jokes that we tell. These rituals are part of belonging and will lower your child's stress by preventing it in many cases. We also can remain engaged in our children's emotions, and that's another great act of prevention. So remaining engaged in how your child's doing, check in with them, ask good questions. Let's get behind, hey, how'd it go today, bud? Get beyond that and say, what made you laugh today? What new thing did you learn? What's your favorite thing about being in this family? Invent your own good questions, things that dial in to maybe a specific element of your child's day. Validate their emotions. Assure your children that emotions are part of the human experience and they are not wrong. Emotions and how you feel. It's okay to feel however you're feeling. We feel lots of different things across the course of any day, and all of those things are okay. So make it your goal to experience and share the strong emotions with your children, and experiencing them with them will help them to regulate those and give them a sense of security and helping them to ratchet back the stress. That's about all the time that I have today. And I really appreciate you hanging in there with me. If you've got questions, please send them to me at my website. There's a place to contact me. Go to well, that's easy for me to say, www.joyfulharborhome.com. And there's a place there for you to subscribe to this website. You'll receive only my weekly blog if you subscribe there, and you'll have access to a lot of freebies. And I will be making a habit from here on out for the next several months of regularly posting these presentations that I do for small groups. I go to support groups of moms and dads, parents. If you're a member of a MOPS group, happy to come to your group if you live in the Charlotte, North Carolina greater area. That includes places like Rock Hill, South Carolina, or up into the mountain cities of Western North Carolina. If I can get there in a couple of hours, I'd be glad to come and do these presentations at your group, at your church, or wherever. The other thing I've got going on right now on my website is if you'll go to my shop, I've got copies of my book that are autographed and personally autographed to you available, and that's $18 shipping included. So if you would like to do that, just, let me know. Happy to be in contact with you. I would love to respond to your questions and your comments. And again, I thank you so much for being in my harbor home. And I wish you all the love and security and low stress that you can find as you are creating your harbor home. Thanks for looking into how the cove of your harbor can be strengthened. Bye, everybody.